A landmark bill establishing a regulatory framework for the roughly $250 billion cryptocurrency market known as stablecoin has become law. President Trump signed the so-called Genius Act at the White House today and gave remarks.
And with today's signing, we're pushing even further into the exciting new frontier. Just as I promised last year, the Genius Act creates a clear and simple regulatory framework to establish and unleash the immense promise of dollar-backed stable coins. This could be perhaps the greatest revolution in financial technology since the birth of the Internet itself.
Hines joins us now from the White House. He is the executive director of the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets, more commonly known as the Crypto Council. Bo, I know this is a huge day for you, so thanks so much for spending a little bit of it with us.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So can you just explain what this law does in practice, especially when it comes to offering more protections for consumers who either invest in crypto or want to, but they're not sure?
Sure, yeah. So this is landmark legislation that overhauls the entire financial system. It creates new payment rails. For U.S. consumers, these rails will be much more transparent, more efficient, more cost-effective. So a stable coin is literally a digital dollar that's backed by a real dollar in a bank account somewhere else. And so what we have here is, we're pushing U.S. dollars globally. It gives others in different parts of the world the opportunity to have dollar-backed stable coins in the account. It keeps their money secure and safe. For these stablecoin issuers now, they have to be one-to-one backed. They have to prove they're one-to-one backed in an audit. So we have now full transparency of what they're doing. We're onshoring a lot of the folks that were engaged in this space in the beginning. But, I can't overstate how big of a deal this is. This lays the groundwork for tokenization of public securities. It revolutionizes our financial system.
And Bill, obviously, with all things that have to do with new technology like this, it is a race, a competition. Does the Genius Act do anything to make sure that U.S. stablecoin issuers are going to be the gold standard and that world leaders, recognize this in some way?
Well, even the stablecoin issuers that are offshore now fall under this regulatory regime, which is why this is so huge. Look, the most sought-after thing in the world is the U.S. dollar. They're injecting that into foreign economies, and this secures U.S. dollar global dominance for decades to come. One of the stablecoin issuers that's offshore is going to be the fourth largest purchaser of U.S. treasuries, including all countries this year. That's a remarkable statistic. So now we're not relying on foreign actors any longer just buying U.S. debt. You're going to have private enterprise doing the same thing. But, who stands to benefit from this is the American people, the American consumer. This technology is revolutionizing the financial system in really tremendous ways. And a lot of what's happening in the crypto space is propelling that forward. So, this is an industry that has been broadly beaten down and kicked down over the course of the last decade. They were victims of policymaking through prosecution and persecution. And now we have a president that recognizes their legitimacy. He stepped up in a huge way to lead the charge on this. And also, I'd be remiss not to thank our brilliant AI and crypto czar, David Sachs. He's done a phenomenal job. He's been the guiding star. This is just fantastic bipartisan work. Over 300 votes in the House for this piece of legislation.
Yeah. Well, on that note about the president's enthusiasm, of course, there are also concerns from Democrats, from others, watchdog groups, that, the president and his family stand to make a whole lot of money here, because even though the provision in the bill, there is one that prohibits any member of Congress or senior executive branch official from issuing a payment stablecoin product during their time in public service, that does not extend to the president or the vice president, for that matter. Why not?
Well, look, the president's family has the right to engage in this space like anyone else. They're private citizens. His interest here is controlled in the blind trust. They're great business people. The president obviously is a phenomenal business person. So are his sons. If they weren't engaged in this emerging technological space, then they probably wouldn't be great business people, to be honest with you, because this is where everything is happening. And they have every right to do that. Look, Democrats weren't that concerned about it because, I have right here the vote total from the cloakroom, and we have, let's see, over 102 Democratic votes for this piece of legislation. So, we feel good about where we are. We're going to continue. We're going to continue to push forward on the crypto agenda, and we're going to get market structure done next.
Can you reassure the American public that there's not a conflict of interest if the president is actively engaged in his family's business?
There's absolutely zero conflict of interest here. None, not at all. You know, the president has every right, or his family has every right to engage in any space they choose in the U.S. economy, and this space is no different. Why is crypto treated differently than anything else?
And finally, Bo, the president just said a short time ago he'd be growing crypto even more. Do you have any news to share with us?
The president plans on signing market structure legislation into law. So one thing that was missed from some folks yesterday is, you know, Clarity moved forward in a bipartisan way as well. I think they had 78 Democrats sign onto that piece of legislation in the House. That's going to go over to the Senate chamber. It's going to get tightened up a little bit there. But, you know, the Clarity Act provides the rules of the road for the digital asset firms in the space. It tells them who the regulator is and what authority that regulator has. You know, when this is through, we will absolutely cement ourselves as the crypto capital of the world. Today was a monumental step in doing that. And really, this is about the president delivering on his promises to this industry and to the American consumer, which he is obviously doing with this bill signing today.
All right, Bo Hines, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.